Welcome to Mystic Recap. Today we will discuss a 2018 movie Rosogolla. The film begins with young Nobin Chandra observing a candy store where the proprietor is making a variety of sweets. As he watches, he hears a group of travelers singing a song and he impulsively joins in, singing alongside them. After their brief performance, the leader of the travelers asks Ben for something. However, since Ben has nothing to give, he quickly scoops up some wet mud and molds it into a ball, which he presents to the leader. To Ben's surprise, the leader is delighted and blesses him, saying that he was born to feed people. Fast forward several years, and Ben is now a grown man, preparing food for a family gathering at his uncle Nitin's house. Since Ben's father passed away at an early age, he and his mother have been living with his uncle and his family. At the gathering, Ben makes a unique dish that is well received by the guests, who approach Nitin to praise the chef and give him a tip. However, Nitin introduces someone else as the chef, taking all the credit for the food himself. This makes Ben very upset, but he is unable to do anything but glare at his uncle. Later, when Ben confronts Nitin about why he took the credit, Nitin explains that he doesn't want his nephew to be known as someone who makes food for others. This angers Ben, who loves cooking and is considering becoming a confectioner. Nitin dismisses the idea, saying that no one in their family has ever pursued such a low-profile job. He also warns that if Ben wants to pursue this path, he and his mother would have to leave their relationships with him and his family behind. This leads to a heated argument and Ben leaves his uncle's house for a few days. Some days later when his mother pleads with him, Ben starts working at a candy store owned by the haughty Kalidas. Ben is eager to work with confectioners Mahesh and Hemant, but Kalidas assigns him the role of a helper and customer attendant instead. During his shift, Ben observes Hemant making a dessert and suggests adding raisins to enhance the flavor. Although Hemant declines the idea, Mahesh encourages Ben to continue experimenting. Later, while keeping an eye on the shop, a young woman named Devi enters and hides behind a wooden rack. Startled, Ben asks her why she is there, and she explains she is playing hide and seek with her brother. When asked to leave, Devi changes her story and identifies herself as a guest and requests the best sweet dish available. Ben excitedly presents her with various options, but she does not seem to like any of them. When Ben takes his eyes off her, she makes her get away. It is later revealed that Devi's plan was to get free sweets. In the next scene, Kalidas arrives at the shop to discover that Devi ate 16 of his desserts without paying. He threatens to deduct the cost from Ben's salary if he does not retrieve the money. Upset, Ben sets out to find Devi and locates her playing with friends. As soon as she sees Ben approaching, she runs into her house. Ben follows her inside and meets her mother. He proceeds to recount the events to the woman and successfully retrieves the money. Overjoyed with his success, Ben decides to leave but is stopped by Devi, who bites his hand, takes back the money, and complains about the sweets. Devi eventually agrees to pay Ben the money, but only if he makes a specific sweet dish as per her request. She demands a white, round dish that should melt in her mouth. Eager to experiment, Ben agrees to the request and departs. The following day, Ben obtains cottage cheese and sugar with Mahesh and begins preparing the dish. Despite his efforts, the cottage cheese balls he tries to fry break apart. As a result, he wastes a lot of cheese and oil. In the afternoon, Kalidas enters the shop and scolds Ben for wasting such expensive items. However, Ben tries to defend himself by explaining that he was trying to create a new dish. Kalidas, however, does not listen and slaps him. Later, Ben can be seen at a big bungalow where the owner asks him to make a special sweet dish for her son-in-laws. Ben accepts the request and delivers a dish covered in mango pulp with juice inside. All of the son-in-laws greatly appreciate the dish and praise Nobin. Unfortunately, Kalidas finds out that Ben charged less for the dish and accuses him of making a loss. As a result, he fires him from the shop. Because of this, Ben's mother had to apologize to Kalidas and manages to return the funds. However, Nitin, his uncle, gives him an ultimatum to leave the house within 7 days. Without objection, Ben and his mother comply, moving to a small rental property. Now, because of his shenanigans, no one in the market will offer Ben a job, so he takes on work as a garbage collector. His mother feels ashamed of this and insists he pursue his dream of becoming a confectioner. The following morning, Mahesh introduces Ben to a businessman named Mr. Shandu who is impressed by his cooking abilities and offers him a partnership. Ben happily accepts and Mahesh joins the venture. As they work in the shop, a customer orders a special dessert for a wedding, but Shandu takes the advance payment and disappears. In the next scene, it is revealed that Devi is a confectioner's granddaughter. When she receives a marriage proposal from Ben's family, she initially gets angry, but upon learning his name, she happily agrees. A few days later, the two marry and are overjoyed to be together. On their first night as newlyweds, Ben attempts to make the requested dessert but fails. Upon his return to the shop, Ben encounters a crowd of customers gathered around. They accuse the shop of betrayal and failing to fulfill their order on time. After speaking with Mahesh, Ben learns that Shandu had taken the advance payment and gone missing. Determined to resolve the issue, he sets out to find Shandu and finds him at a bar. Despite being informed about the situation back at the shop, Shandu shows no concern and reveals that he had spent the money on opium. Devastated, Ben breaks down in front of everyone. However, his distress catches the attention of Malkajan, the bar owner, who offers him financial assistance. With the newfound support, Ben returns to the shop and begins preparing the sweets. Just as he starts, someone arrives to see him, causing him to leave and entrust Shandu with the sweet boiling syrup. Tragically, Shandu accidentally spills some opium into the mixture. Despite his efforts to remove it, the opium remains, and Shandu keeps the mistake to himself. The next day, Ben uses the contaminated syrup to make sweets and distributes them at a customer's wedding. Unfortunately, all the guests become sick due to the excessive amount of opium, and as a result, Ben is beaten and his shop is forced to close. Feeling defeated, he spends time in his home, sad and sullen. However, Mahesh visits and encourages him to start a new shop. Divi also offers her support and jewelry to help Ben obtain the funds necessary to start a new shop. After receiving much encouragement, Ben finally opened his own confectionery shop, located directly across from Kalidas's. However, after a year, the shop failed to attract customers. Despite repeated attempts to make Rosogolla, every batch was ruined. Divi became frustrated with Ben's lack of effort and scolded him for being lazy, causing him to leave in anger and join a pilgrimage group to sing in a foreign mansion. To everyone's surprise, the foreigner, Mr. Paulo, was impressed by Nobin's singing skills and offered him a sweet cake. Upon tasting the cake, Ben was intrigued by its soft texture and asked about the recipe. Mr. Paulo showed him how to make soft cottage cheese, which gave Ben an idea. He returned home later that evening, apologized to his mother and Divi for his actions, and reunited with Mahesh to begin making the cheese. By following Mr. Paulo's process, Ben was able to successfully make the Rosogolla, much to everyone's delight. To prove its quality, he took Divi to the place they met before and let her taste it. As soon as she did, she smiled and confirmed that it met her expectations. The dish was a hit with everyone in the family, and the next day, Ben puts it up for sale at his shop. Unfortunately, there were no customers. After waiting for a while, a father-son duo stopped by and asked for water for their thirsty son. Ben surprises them by offering them Rosogollas instead of water. To their delight, the son takes a liking to the confection, leading his father to purchase all the Rosogollas in the shop. This leads to a surge in business as everyone in the town becomes obsessed with the sweet treat. Following this, Ben visits those who helped him during difficult times and shares his Rosogollas with them. He even teaches many confectioners how to make the dish. In the next scene, Kalidas cunningly invites a patent registrar named Amrit Lal Banik and tries to convince him to patent the Rosogollas under his name. However, the servant who brings the Rosogollas mentions that Ben taught him to make them. Upon hearing this, Amrit Lal decides to approach Divi instead. He shares the idea of patenting the Rosogollas and suggests Divi inform her husband about it. However, when she does, Ben despises the idea, causing an angry Divi to leave him and return to her parents' house. Time passes, and one day Ben visits his longtime rival, Kalidas, with some Rosogollas. Despite initial reluctance, Kalidas eventually agrees to try them and is taken aback by their delicious flavor. He apologizes to Ben for their past differences and asks to learn the recipe. Being a kind person, Ben immediately agrees. In the following scene, a beggar-like man approaches Ben's shop and requests some food. Ben warmly welcomes a man into his home and offers him a meal. To his surprise, the visitor turns out to be Shandu, who had fled after a misunderstanding involving the poisoning of sweets. Shandu finally reveals that he accidentally mixed opium into the sweet syrup but was too scared to confess. Instead of being angry, Ben forgives Shandu and honors him by naming the dish after his real name, Vaikunta Ganguly. In the last scene, Ben visits Divi at her mother's house and brings the Vaikunta with him as a gesture of affection. At first, Divi is reluctant to talk, but after trying the dish she becomes happy and forgives Ben. The movie concludes with Divi inquiring about the ingredients of the Vaikunta and Ben responding that it can only be made with love. So, what are your thoughts on this movie? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more movie reviews and recaps. Until next time.